It's time for the Brouhaha Sports Show. Brouhaha Sports with award-winning sports writer Dale McKee and co-host Marshall Wood. Talking sports with the legends of the game and famous sports personalities. Brouhaha! Now to Marshall and Dale with tonight's guest.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to tonight's edition of the Brouhaha. Marshall Wood and Dale McKee with you for one more week. One more week. Dale, you reckon we got another one in us?
Hopefully we do. Hopefully we do.
Well, we've made it this far. We might as well finish the show. We'll go ahead and finish the show.
Yeah, I was figuring up the other day, this is like our, we started this program in 21. So we finished our third year in August, or July, so we're into our fourth year.
Man, we're doing some work, ain't we?
Yeah, I didn't know it was long.
I'm getting tired.
Yeah.
Man, what an interesting. Hey, if you're a college football fan, buddy, you're in pretty good shape right now. There's a lot of stuff going on out there. And how about this past weekend?
Hey, it's playoff elimination every week. Bye-bye LSU.
Boy, I hate that, don't you?
Bye-bye Tigers.
Well, I tell you what, looks like Alabama's got there doing just what they do. I tell you what, that's probably one of the biggest wins in Ole Miss history up there at Vaught-Hemingway last Saturday.
Well, right now with the 12-team playoff, I don't see how you can go wrong on that. I was reflecting on, I think around 1976 maybe, Ole Miss beat an undefeated Georgia team that went on and won the SEC championship. Of course, I was there that day, and I was in the stadium when Ole Miss beat Notre Dame. You know, that was a big one because Notre Dame didn't lose again.
Yeah.
You know, they won the national championship that year. So, but this was the first. You know, I guess with the playoffs, it's magnifying. They're getting a lot of press. Had some super talented high school football players on campus, and I heard that one guy from George County that's committed strongly to Auburn, he was up there and he joined in the celebration on the field after it was over.
Well, I tell you what, after what I saw from that Simmons kid, if he goes up there, he better be prepared to sit a while. That kid's pretty good.
He looked really good.
Is he only 17?
He finished high school a year early, when he was like 16, something like that.
He's like a straight A student too, isn't he?
Yeah.
They got him a good one sitting in there behind Dart.
Yeah.
I'm not throwing off on the Walker kid, but that kid can go.
Hey, he came in and was very impressive. I wanted to, throw my blanket or ever what I had or pillow or what it was watching the ball game. I just wanted to throw it and say this thing's over. It's 7-0 Georgia. Threw an interception. Dart's walking off the field.
Hurt.
Yeah, I'm saying I'm going outside and do a little something.
I'm gonna tell you something that I have just really. I've watched them play some this year, and I read all the preseason hype about what they did through the portal. That defensive line that they have up there it's pretty. It may be the best in college football.
You've got to have a really balanced attack to play them. Georgia couldn't run the ball after the first series for some reason. They ended up with like
less than 100,
59 yards rushing total, positive yards. And once you can tee off on a quarterback, if you just got an average defense, but Ole Miss, that number one, I can't pronounce his name. I call him Prince. He's a transfer from Florida, and the little Perkins kid from Raleigh.
Yeah. Number 15, that Ivy guy.
Yeah.
And then Piggies. And then there's another one. There's number 1 and number 2, Nolan.
Yeah.
I mean, those guys are 300-plus guys.
Well, when Kiffin said after the game that in one of his many interviews, because he had many, I'm sure, but he said something to the fact, well, this all started last year at Georgia.
Yeah.
And they were beat like, I don't know what it was, 51-12 or something. He said, I've got to go out and get me some players that can play at this level if we're going to compete with a Georgia.
Yeah.
And he's got 17 transfers starting. Mm-hmm. That's pretty. And do you realize that they had their number one running back and their number one wide receiver didn't even play. And they're their two best players, at least the wide receiver is, but boy, and it's like Kiffin said before the game, he said, next man up.
Yeah.
And they have a great depth, and that's
when you got a good roster, you can say that. If you don't have a good roster, you say, oh, well.
And Kirby Smart said after the game, I told my players, this team has the best personnel on all three phases of the game. And Ole Miss dominated all three phases from the special teams to both sides of the ball.
Oh, Kiffin ain't such a dummy anymore, is he? I mean,
well, you know, if he would just have a little bit more personality, I think that would help him a lot. But evidently, he's got enough personality to get recruits.
Obviously, he does. I saw him driving somebody around up there in one of those Bentleys the other day. Did you see that one? Looking at the where would you like to go, sir? But anyway, let's turn our attention to our guest tonight. Who you got for us tonight?
We got Luke Johnson. He's going to talk to us about maybe what's going on in Southern Miss football and what the future lies for the Eagles. It's been kind of a down year for them. I think it's very unexpected. I thought they would do a little bit better with the transfers that they brought in last year, but it just didn't work out, and so we'll just see what the future is.
Well, let's take a break here from our sponsor, and we'll be back right after this commercial with tonight's guest, Luke Johnson. See you after the break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome to the show, Luke Johnson. Luke, glad to have you on the show today, and we're here going to talk a little bit about some of the happenings down at USM this year. First of all, the season didn't go as well as many expected. I think people are kind of shocked that the Eagles have not won any conference games. But what is your take on it?
Yeah, guys, it's always good to be with you, and thanks for the invite to come on. And it's been really tough. Southern Miss fans were really looking forward to this season. They thought after the 2022 season with 7 wins in the bullpen, and last year was disappointing coming off that, and so you thought maybe the last 2 recruiting classes from Will Hall and his coaching staff, they were, towards the very, very top in the Sun Belt, and it just didn't pan out. Will Hall, midway through last season gave up the offensive play calling, and then brought in 2 new coordinators. And Chip Long was a guy who had a lot of success, even at that time the Power 5 level. And he was at Louisville last year, and it just didn't pan out. And so, they went in a different direction a few weeks back. Will Hall was relieved of his coaching duties. And I think when you look back on it, what has plagued them really throughout the entire time was they were never able to develop an offensive line, specifically this year. This was going to be all the, quote, highly touted, offensive linemen from the earlier classes that were now redshirt sophomores and juniors, and they just not been very good at all. That paired with what has been the revolving door at quarterback. You brought in Tate Rodemaker from Florida State, and he didn't pan out at all. Ethan Crawford struggled mightily the past few weeks. And, this year particularly, they only have John White available for maybe one more game, and then you burn his red shirt. So they're trying to hang on to that. But overall, this year the offensive line has not been very good at all. They have not got good quarterback play. And, now Reed Stringer just trying to hang on. You can see the more and more, earlier in the season you see it, but now even more and more, whenever adversity strikes in a game, a couple of bad things happen, and it just is a mindset that they kind of go into a mental spin. And I'm not going to say give up, but you can tell that this program, individually and collectively, has a hard time believing they can win. And so when you get that mindset, it's hard to break it out. That's probably why we've seen the spiral into 1-8 like it is now.
Well, Will, when he was coaching, he always really kind of like the quarterback for that first year, but it just seems like you said, offensive line, I just know that Ethan Crawford doesn't have very much time to throw the ball. because he's pressured a lot, he's sacked a lot, and of course I know you have to have somebody there, but when did all this kind of come down as far as, USM used to be so consistent, in their deal, in their recruiting area. Does the recruiting area need to change to a certain extent? Because I know Will had a lot of emphasis on getting Mississippi boys, which I completely understand. We would all like that, but it doesn't seem like, like the division, two other Division I programs, they seem to be, only maybe targeting 4 or 5 kids in the state. So are they going to have to change the boundaries of the new coach about how he wants to recruit?
Yeah, I think the answer is there's a middle ground in between that. As far as, whenever these recruiting services like On3 and 24/7 Arrivals, for the most part, if a kid, is a 3-star, 4-star, most of the time he ends up being a really good college football player. And, you can look at the 5 stars and look at how many of those guys end up in the NFL, and, they hit that mark pretty good. I think what people have been concerned about, now this is just hearing and reading and watching the observations of other people, I think people struggled to see this coaching staff develop players, and particularly at the quarterback position, particularly at the offensive line, the two that I just talked about. The two biggest gripes with fans in the past couple of years has been the inability to develop a quarterback or significant development with players. And it seems as if Southern Miss got out-coached in the second half of football games. So I thought that this coaching staff was really good at identifying talent. And because when you look at across the board, when they're top, 2 or 3 recruiting class in the Sun Belt, and yet you're not winning Sun Belt games, and you haven't beat hardly any teams with winning records in the last several years, that those two gripes seem to be substantiated in some point. So you can identify talent, but you have to develop it, and you have to be able to put guys where you want to in games. I feel like because Will was a good friend, and the one thing about it, he won everywhere except on the field, and that's what when he put out when it just seemed as if he was regretful to the fact that they got it done everywhere but on the field, and that was what was most unfortunate about it. So you be able to identify talent, develop it, and then use it on the field to get those wins, because college football is a business, and really ultimately it's the wins that matter.
Well, and getting back to the transfer portal and recruiting, it seems like he was bringing a lot of but it seems like he was bringing 4 or 5 Division I players a year from other schools, that may have not panned out. They might have been a backup at, say, one of the SEC schools or something like this, and they were coming in, but those boys really didn't really pan out either, did they?
Some have, some haven't. Leslie Simmons, who came in from Ole Miss, he was a guy that they thought could be an impact, and the wide receiver core really hasn't done much this year because the quarterback hadn't had time to throw the ball. Kyron Heath's another guy tied in from Ole Miss that looked really, really good, early on. Some of these guys have played coming off the thrown in there on defense. Trey Pinckney from Coastal Carolina, another guy Desmond Baker from Western Kentucky. But I just mentioned some didn't work at all. Tate Rodemaker from Florida State. Probably one of the biggest players has been Will James, transfer from Mississippi State. I think he has all conference potential, and he's been really good, at cornerback for the Golden Eagles. Another guy that I thought would make a tremendous impact, Dennis Jackson, wide receiver from Missouri, originally from Summerall, transferred from Missouri, but he got hurt early, and again, the wide receiver core has just not been able to produce because the quarterbacks don't have time to throw the football. So, it's a mixed bag. Reed Stringer talked to Joe Cryer, who a highly recruited offensive lineman that just transferred from LSU this past season. He's just coming along, got his first game reps this past week. So, there are plenty of guys that I think will contribute in the future, but whenever there's a coaching change, you wonder, are those guys going to stick around? So far, Southern Miss, I believe, only have had 2 guys that have entered the portal since Will Hall was let go. So I think Reed Stringer, his approach as the interim head coach is doing everything he can to help the program and to cause guys to continue to believe in it.
Looking forward to the new coach now. So someone said they were going to try to have one in place around December the 1st, if that's possible, to you be there for the early recruiting. Are there any names being thrown around in Hattiesburg about who might be the some of the leading candidates?
Yeah, so November goes late. So your last game of the season at Troy is actually the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and that's November the 30th. So I think we could possibly see some smoke Thanksgiving week, and then the day after your last game is February the 1st. So who knows if they could? I don't think they would announce before the last game, but I would suspect some smoke. So some names that are being thrown out. Both of the coordinators at Indiana University, of course, that is a top 5 team right now. Since Cignetti in his first season at Indiana, and that's a guy who came over from James Madison. So both of his coordinators are guys that fans should be watching out. Mike Shanahan, who is the offensive head coach, he was with Cignetti at James Madison, so that means that you have an assistant who already knows the Sun Belt. He was there since 2019. The other guy, Brian Haynes, the defensive coordinator, same way. He was at James Madison from 2019 to 2023. He is a very, very hot name. I mean, that defense is playing really good. So I could see, I've heard both of those names as possible mixes. Mercer head coach Mike Jacobs would be another one. And then a name that's catching on with a lot of Southern Miss fans in Marion, the offensive coordinator at UNLV, that go-go offense. He was with Sarkisian at Texas, I think in an analyst position, but he's a very, very hot name for a coordinator position or a head coach position. A few others, Bill, the former UAB coach, was rumored early. I don't believe you'll see him. I think he's probably not interested in coaching position. And then, a guy with a buyout in the same division, but Brian Vincent's name is kind of thrown around from ULM. He turned the Warhawks around. A few other names, Illinois offensive coordinator was at, I think he was at UTSA a few years back, and Best Barry Lunny Jr. He's competed against Southern Miss before, but those fans would tell you either Shanahan, Haynes, or Marion kind of in the slot number 1. So, and who knows what else? I think as of this week, the interviews have already started. Jeremy McClain always plays his cards pretty close to his chest, but don't be surprised if Thanksgiving week we start hearing some smoke and maybe some traction on who they'll name at the end of this month, first part of December.
Well, let's turn our attention to basketball. How's the outlook for? I saw where the Golden Eagles were rated, I think, number 5 in the preseason poll in the men's league. Are you familiar with the basketball?
Yeah, so this basketball got a lot of new faces, some familiar faces that are back. They're currently 1-1. Beat Bowling Green, who was a 21 team a year ago. They lost to UAB in a game that they got behind early and then kind of fought back. So they're 1-1 right now, but some familiar names coming back. Kobe Montgomery, Andre Curbelo, of course, he was his first year in NCAA. He was, I think, the Big Ten sixth man of the year at Illinois. He's bounced around, but he's kind of a wild card. When he's on, he's really good, capable of double-double, triple-double. A name that Southern Miss happy to get back this year, Neftali Alvarez, foot injury all last year. He and Curbelo will play the guard position. And then Najee Harris is back. He's a guy originally from Columbus, Mississippi, and played at Southern Miss, transferred to Arkansas last year, and then didn't work out up there, so he's back. And Southern Miss fans grateful that he's back at the forward position from the outside. And then some good names coming in. Christian Watson is a guy, he's 6'6", guard, and may play some of the three position. Deontay Gordon, both of those guys are newcomers. Gordon just transferred in from Miami, and Gordon transferred from Little Rock. Both of those guys have big-time potential. And so Southern Miss feels like this is a very, very athletic team. They also have some bigs. They got 2 7-footers. And so I think Ladner thinks this is one of the most athletic teams he's had since he's been at Southern Miss. With it being this week, midweek, November, they take on Loyola Tuesday the 12th, South Dakota State on November 20th. And then later in December, they've got a December 14th matchup against Ole Miss and Biloxi again. And then they will start conference play against Marshall December 21st. So a very athletic team, but, for the way that Coach Ladner and his assistants approach it is you play in order to get a good seed in the tournament. Because, Sunbelt is a one-bid league, and so it really depends on playing your best basketball that 1 week when tournament time comes to try to get to the NCAA tournament.
Luke, this is Marshall. I kind of warned you about this when we got started. I'm kind of the official timekeeper, and we about hit our mark, our friend, and we want to thank you for being with us. And I'll tell you one thing. If you want to know anything about what's going on in USM athletics, this is a guy you need to ask because he knows it. Hold on for us just a minute, Luke. Dale and I are going to take a break to hear from one of our sponsors and be back with tonight's final segment after this commercial break. See you in a minute.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome back, everyone, to our final segment. I tell you what, that Luke, he can go when it comes to Southern Miss, can't he?
Yes, sir, baby. He's got a little preaching in him too.
Yeah. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. What a pleasure it was to have him with us tonight. Final segment, Dale. Got a few wrap-ups. I mean, you and I were talking during the break, and you mentioned something that's kind of interesting that you don't really hear of every day about what's going on down in the great state of Florida when it comes to playing football.
Well, it's true too. Let me see if I can pull up my information that I have. This was, I think AP did this, Associated Press. Anyway, the 9 colleges teams, the FCS and FBS teams, they went 0-9 last week.
0-9?
Oh, yeah. Miami lost, Florida State lost, Florida lost, Florida International lost, South Florida lost, Central Florida lost. And then, on Sunday, Tampa Bay and Jacksonville got beat.
Oh, boy, you could have parlayed that into a pile of money.
So the state went 0-11. So I tried to look back this year just to see if any of our state teams did it, and we haven't so far. But what saved us is one time was that State and Ole Miss lost on the same weekend. Ole Miss to Kentucky, State lost to Texas.
Yeah.
But USM was off.
Hey, I'm a Golden Eagle. Bless our hearts. That's all I got to say, brother. We didn't. Hey, but even if it had only been 3 and not 9.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's some good football they play down there. You go to throwing the Bulls in there and all those guys.
I watched on ESPN Plus when I think it was South Florida came to Hattiesburg this year. And they looked so much bigger and stronger and just kind of ran over USM. and they're not having that great a year.
That's what used to happen to Ole Miss.
Yeah.
maybe this next coach, and then we can turn around and we can start kicking some people around.
Hope so.
It's getting close. Of course, we're in November.
Yeah.
And they're gonna play this thing all the way. I guess we talked about that a little bit, but this playoff stuff, playoffs. Yeah, why not talk about the playoffs? And we're looking at the rankings. I'm looking at the AP top 25 and what we're looking at as of after this past week. And Ole Miss had dropped down there out of the picture. Of course, this is not the CFP poll, but they've found their way back into the top 10, and you're looking at the AP rankings: Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Indiana, Tennessee, Brigham Young, Notre Dame, Alabama, Ole Miss, Georgia, Miami. There's your 12 right now. Miami, I watched Miami this weekend, and I heard a lot about that quarterback, and they got beat, and he took some beating this weekend, but I tell you what, that guy, even in that loss, have you watched him play?
Yeah, Cam Ward.
He's good. Yeah. And he's hard to catch. Mm-hmm. He's a big guy, but he just kind of floats around back there and he knows where to step at the right time, man. Mm-hmm. But he didn't have enough in him to pull that one off this weekend.
Yeah, well, another quarterback looked pretty good this weekend over at Alabama.
Mr. Milroe.
Yeah, he looked like he was the fastest and the best running back on the field. Well, he didn't even play running back. But you know what's interesting about the rankings and everything? Ole Miss came in at 11th in the coaches poll, but they went up 8 slots in the AP poll, which is very impressive. And of course, Georgia fell 9 slots. But if you really look at some of these top 20 teams in our conference, in the SEC conference, you're looking at Alabama and Texas, and you're looking at Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama, Texas A&M, Missouri. I'm just trying to think of all of them that I can think of, but they all have a chance to be 10-2.
Isn't that crazy?
And then you're going to have to pick somebody to...
Then you got conference winners.
Yeah, and then, so, it's a 12-team playoff. Well, you got 5 automatic.
We need more. We need 20 in
Well, you got... I think you got 4 or 5 automatic bids. So you got 7, independents.
Yeah.
Well, you got, say if Ohio State beats Indiana, both of them going to come in there with 1 loss. Well, they should make it. Well, then you're going to add Penn State, okay, maybe. Yeah. So that's 3, okay. So I don't know if the SEC is going to have over 4 teams in the playoffs when it's all said and done.
I don't know how you could ask for more than 4, to be quite honest with you. I'm looking at something. I'm going to change direction on you right quick, but it has something to do with that. And you know what? I read a lot about the football power index. Do you know what that is?
Well, I've heard of it, but I really don't know. Well, I think it's something to do with strength of schedule.
Well, it does. It abbreviates. It's a predictive rating system developed by ESPN that measures team strength and uses it to forecast game and season results. Oh, that's a J. Mar. Hold on a minute, everybody. Somebody get that. Defensive and special teams value. And according to the most recent football power index, here is the top. Let's see here. The best chances of winning a national championship as of today, according to the Football Power Index. The best chance, Texas Longhorns at 17.2%. Next in line, Ohio State Buckeyes at 16.9%. The Crimson Tide at 15.5%. Oregon Ducks at 7.8%. Notre Dame at 7.6%. The Georgia Bulldogs at 6.9%. The Nittany Lions of Penn State University at 5.1%, and the Ole Miss Rebels at 4.9%, followed by the Volunteers of Tennessee at 4.6%, and the Hoosiers of Indiana at 4.1%. So that's what the Power Index is saying right now of the chances of who's going to win.
All right, let me give you a scenario. Texas wins the SEC by having just 1 loss.
Well,
okay. So
can I stop you there for a minute because there's going to be a playoff to win the SEC, right?
Yeah, but I'm just saying to get to the playoffs, to the SEC championship game. So Texas will be maybe the 1-loss team.
Okay.
Okay, and I'm basing it on who they're going to play here in the last 3 games too. So they get there. Now you got to choose number 2. Okay. Well, if you look at an Alabama schedule and a Tennessee schedule, if you have to choose between these, even though Tennessee beat Alabama, is that going to trump, or is it going to go to the other way to where you have to say, well, Alabama played a tougher schedule. They played Georgia. They played LSU at LSU. They did play Tennessee. You're throwing all these teams. They played Missouri, who's a top 25 team. So Tennessee really hasn't had that schedule. They played Alabama. Now they're fixing to get it this weekend. They go up against Georgia.
Yeah.
And I'm sure Georgia's not going to be. It's going to be like a hornet's nest.
They're fighting for survival now.
Yeah.
But still, according to the Power Index, they got the 6th best chance of winning the national championship right now.
Yeah.
So that says a lot. But it's going to be an interesting run, no doubt about it. But Dale, we're out of time.
Are we?
Yeah, we are. I want to tell all of our listeners we appreciate y'all for being with us. You can follow us on our Facebook page at the Brouhaha, and all of our shows are cataloged on our YouTube channel. You can listen to them on demand at the Brouhaha. And then what else is there? That's about it, isn't it, Dale? I guess it's about time to say goodbye, Dale.
Goodbye, Dale.
And we'll see you next week for more of the Brouhaha. Get us out of here, Jamie.
You've been listening to the Brouhaha with Dale McKee and Marshall Wood. Heard Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. on WABO. For more of the Brouhaha, follow us during the week on Facebook and WABO.